So we'll start putting this together. I might just start by getting the motor and putting the drive pulley on. Put it around this way. So this grub screw should line up with the flat on the shaft, and that'll just lock that in place. Put that there. Put that back there. And swap back out. That was a 1.5mm Allen key. So I'll just swap that back out for the 2mm. And we're going to start out by popping the motor on the back side of one of these plates here. We'll just take these two M3 by 6 button heads and pop that in there. Pop that one in there. Do them up pretty tight. Now we're ready to start assembling this. Now before we pop all of these in, I'm just going to check that some of these components actually fit in the holes. Sometimes they go in easily and other times they don't. And it's important to check that they go in, especially these little T or these little H section pieces here, because the back side of these, sometimes the hole is just a little bit too small for it to fit into, and it's very difficult to slot it together once it's already in place, but that one seems to be alright. And I might just try this one in the back of this. Seems to be good. Okay, so we're just going to take these two little ones that were sitting up the top here, these two here, and we're just going to sit those in the two square holes just above the motor here. So they're sticking out something like that. We'll take these little V section pieces, and they go in. There's one that goes in this end. Now this is a little bit tough too. I'm just going to check that one goes into this hole. Yep, that's good. Doesn't seem to want to come back out again. Don't want to force it. Here we go. Okay, the next little V goes in the middle. That one went easily. And the last little V goes in the end here. Oops. Goes in that way. So we've got one here, and one here. Okay, next thing, we're just going to take this piece here. Okay, from there. And we're just going to pop that in this end. That doesn't look like it wants to really go in either. Squeeze that in. So we'll just take the other one, pop that in there. That's quite tight. I'm just going to get my needle file, and give that just a little bit of an ease down. Take some of those edges off. Usually doesn't need very much. Try that in there again. That's better. And see if this pops on. On that back edge there. Yes, it does. Okay. So we're going to be okay when we have to put all of this, assemble this all together. That's good. That's ready to go. Those wires are a bit of a pain in the bum. Try and reassemble that. Okay. So now that we've got that done, we'll start loading in some of these bearings. And we'll take one of these M3 by 20 bolts. Put those in these two holes like this. And the third one in there. Now they're meant to be a bit of a tight fit. If they're a bit loose, I'll pop a bit of tape on the back there so that they don't fall back out. It's a bit tragic when you get it all together and they fall out the bottom, or fall out the back, and all of your bearings and washers and everything come flying out. So we'll just do this. Those three for the moment. So we've got the 20s in this hole here, and another one in this hole here. And we've got a 25mm machine screw here, and that's just going to pop through this slot just above the motor. I'm going to pop a bit of tape on the back of that again. Like this. So we've got them all taped in at the back. So now we're going to load up these bearings. So we'll just start with this washer first. Put the washer on there. A spacer, then the mudguard washer, bearing, mudguard washer, spacer. Now that first washer, I'll start with this one. Put the washer there. Now don't put the washer on this one, on the 25mm bolt. That needs a bit of extra clearance, but the washer just takes up some of the extra clearance between the parts. Spacer, mudguard washer, bearing, oops, bearing, mudguard washer, spacer. I'll do the same for this one. Washer, spacer, mudguard washer, bearing, washer, spacer. Now for the 25mm, we're just going to go spacer, mudguard washer, bearing, mudguard washer, spacer. Now we can put the top on, the other side, the side surface, or top in this orientation, but it's going to be the side of the machine. There we go. Middle one. These bearings come out. Let's get that back in there. go. Last ones. And we're in. That's great. Okay, so there we go. Now, one important thing to keep in mind is that these bearings and the washers around them need to be quite loose. So if in that process your bolts have tightened them right up, are really tight in there, and the bearings can't run properly, then we'll just have to turn them back out a little bit. But these ones seem pretty good. Excellent, in fact. All right, so I'm just going to put this aside for the moment, and we might make this other little assembly here. So we're going to need this piece, those three pieces there, and so we're just going to take this H. This is for your, it's just a little cable router for taking the cables back down. So the principle of the machine is that the X-axis raises up out of the body of the machine, and so we just need something to route the cables so that when the X-axis comes up and down, that it doesn't foul all of the wires on the way through. So I'm just going to take one of these crucifix type shapes and pop it in one of those holes. Now this is handed, so it needs to sit in the machine like this. So if you're holding this part with the motor out to your right hand side, this little piece here needs to sit out to the right hand side as well. So that just kind of pops in there like that. So I'm going to just take that out again. So we've got one of these little crucifixes in there already. Put the H in, and the other crucifix. These ones are fitting really nicely. Some of the others have been a bit tight. And then this piece here sits on these tabs here. Like that. So this assembly is now done, except for a little bit of glue. So we're just going to put some of this MEK mix, the PVC primer. So this assembly is now ready to be stuck together. We're just going to use a little bit of the PVC primer solution and coat all of these joins fairly liberally, wanting it to wick into all of those gaps. I'm just going to set that there for the moment. Okay, so we might, just while that's setting, we might get some of these other components in. So we're just going to set this aside a little bit, and we're going to take one of these millipede type characters, and this one sets in here underneath. Just be gentle with its end two legs. If it's not going in, remember we can just flip this part around so that it faces the other way. Because of the kerf on the cut, the angle of the kerf, and that's sitting in there nicely, so that should look something like that. And this little flat end millipede character sits in here with the extended tab facing up into the radius in that corner. So like this. And again, I'm just going to look at the angles on that. That looks like it's about right. Pop that in there. That's good. And we'll take care of these ends now. Just take one of these little letterbox characters. Slide that up in here. It's not handed, so it doesn't really matter which way it goes. And then take this other little Martian character, put that in here underneath, and the little top hat, and that goes on there, squeezes in there. We're going to do the same with the other end. So letterbox goes up in here, little Martian goes in here, and then top hat goes in here. So now you should have a part that looks like that. So we've got triangles at the ends, all filled in at the base here. I'll squeeze it all together. And now this final part, this one here, can go in and sit like this. Now you have to be really careful with this piece. It does break off quite easily, so we might actually leave that off for the moment and glue that on closer to the time of assembly, final assembly. So what I might do though is just pop the MEK acetone solution in all of these joints. So we just go around, pull that out the side. And we'll just pop it in these screw holes as well, because I want the screws to hold in there. I haven't put any nuts in on the screws because it looks better without the nuts. And I'd made the holes quite small, just a little bit like a bit of an interference fit. Sadly, it's not consistent on the laser cut. So we just need to make sure that they stay in place. And we'll check those afterwards. If they're still too loose after we've completed this process, then we'll need to put a little bit of super glue just to hold them in place. Actually, while we're at it, I might just take this 25mm, pop the washer on the other end, and one of the nylock nuts on there. I'll do that up afterwards, so at least that one will stay in the machine. We're in the assembly. And try and be as careful as you can putting this glue on. It does frost the material, so if it does go everywhere, you will find that you end up with some frosted areas. So again, be careful tipping this over in case your bolts fall out. gonna make sure we've got good coverage. Got a bit of frosting already on this part over here. But it doesn't frost as badly as the super glue will. Okay, I'm going to set that aside just for a moment. And while we're waiting for that to dry, those two components to tap, and we're going to put together this striker. This is the striker that goes down. It's an adjustable striker that hits the end stop, the switch that stops the Z-axis in the right spot every time. So it is quite an important element to the machine. I'm just going to pop these hex nuts into the cutout in the center of those. Now it's really important not to push these in too hard. If you push them in all the way, they're likely to snap the part. So just find the side that has the more open, the side that the laser goes in first, cuts first, so that it's the top surface is a little bit wider than the bottom, and then the nut should just sit in there quite comfortably, snugly. Just grab that one. This one's quite a tight fit. If you do break these, I've got some spares in the kit, so there we go. This one has a tapped thread in it. It's got a little M3 symbol on here. So we're going to put a nut on first, and the second one there, and this threaded one we're going to pop on like this. My thread mustn't be very clean on the end of this. It's not. Alright, if you find that your thread is not clean on the end of the M3 all thread here, and just give it a file so that it's nice and flat. And then a little 45-degree rub, rolling this one in your fingers as you push this one across. Let's just try it with a nut before we try and do it with the threaded component. There we go. Let's try it again. I'm going to put it on that way. Perfect. That's good. I'll just turn it down until that little end here is flush with the top surface, and then wind this one back up, and then thread lock them together so that they're really tight. And we're going to wind this one back up, and we're going to thread lock the nut. You can do it with your pliers or with a little shifter. Probably better with a little shifter. Just lock all that in place. And there we go. So this part then sits down in here like this. And to lock that in place, we've got a couple of other threaded parts. Just put this one on first. Push that down in there. the bottom one on. And again, we'll thread lock that till it's quite tight. And it's probably a good idea now to put a dab of MEK just on this bottom one. Put in there. Wind that back up. Nice and tight. And then that component's done there. So last thing we're going to do is prepare these little threaded inserts to go in the up in here. These inserts are what we bolt the X-axis assembly onto the gantry, the Z-axis gantry or lifters. So I think I'm just going to have to thread these first. I don't think I've threaded those. So I'll just grab my threading tool again. And I'm just going to tear off another little bit of tape. There, and carefully turn this over, making sure that your bolts don't fall out. Oh, we've lost one of our pieces there. Squeeze that back in. So you've got a little degree of play when you're putting this glue in place. It does stay a little bit malleable for a while, so which is good. Okay, so we're going to take this little insert here, and there's a slot in the end there, if you can see that, and just slide that in there and put a bit of tape over the bottom. That'll hold it in. Actually, we might make that bit of tape a bit smaller. It will actually probably stay there for the life of the machine. Should have got some black tape, hey? We'll do the same with this one. That one doesn't seem to want to go in. Go. Just pop that there. And so you can, I probably won't be able to get this in focus, but a bolt from the Z-axis or through the lifters on the Z-axis goes into this gap and then threads into that little insert. And that should be able to move up and down about a millimetre, so we get a bit of tolerance on for leveling the machine. And we're done.